All right. Well, it's actually a minute or so after 7, so why don't we go ahead and get started? We could call the roll, please.
Maria Ryan,
Here.
Bart Bartles,
Here.
Morgan Johnston, Todd Rusk, Andrew Stump,
Here.
Pam Wojtek, Stephen Wald.
Here.
I'd like to start with seeing if there are any changes to the agenda. Does anybody have any? I did want to add the monthly staff report to the communications item, if there are no objections. Any other changes? Nope. All right. Let me get my copy of the agenda up here. And, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and bump that to the next meeting, so. Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? If not, we will move to public input. And I know we have a group presenting tonight, and we have a separate agenda item for you all. But are there any other members of the public who wish to address us this evening? All right. If not, then we'll move forward with the presentation from the Urbana Middle School Future City Club. And I see you've got a future city waiting for our very eyes here.
Hello, my name is Bilbo Backers. Now I'm considering moving into one of these amazing future cities. I've seen a lot of really good ones. Tell me about yours.
First, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Sam Kerwin,
I'm Sam Larson.
and we're the mayors of the Shire.
Wait. Did you name it the Shire? Why?
Well, J.R. Tolkien's novel Lord of the Rings, and the Shire was a peaceful and safe place to live. There was greenery everywhere, and people lived in underground houses. Because of this, we decided that the Shire was a good model for our city, our future city.
But you're not all living in hobbit holes, are you? How is the rest of your city like the Shire?
To make the rest of our city like the Shire, we put nature everywhere. We put it on the roofs, we put it on the walls, we have parks scattered throughout our city, and this makes our city very nature friendly. And
So it's kind of like a paradise with greenery everywhere, just like the Shire would be. Tell me about the layout of your city.
our city is divided into 4 quadrants. In each quadrant, we have all the things that our people need, and they are very easily accessed by all of our people.
How does the city get its energy?
We have 3 main sources of energy. Our first one's our nuclear power plant. Our second one is our methane capture plant. And our third is our wind farm.
What do you do for fun in your city?
Well, one of the most popular leisure activities in the Shire is visiting parks. We have parks everywhere in our city. We also have a symphony hall. Here is an art museum. We have a lake, and we have soccer fields.
Tell me about the transportation. How can I get to school or work from my hobbit hole?
In our city, we have no personal cars, but we make up for that with an excellent transportation system. We have a ton of buses, and our buses go throughout the city, and they're very easily accessible for all of our citizens. And we have walkways all over the place, as you see here. They go throughout all of our city, and people can walk anywhere. And all of our places that people need to go are easily in walking distance from residential areas.
I hear that you have a very effective waste management system. Tell me about it.
Well, in 2016, cities they threw away lots of stuff they didn't really need to. So this is the product life cycle of cities in 2016. Products from extraction to production to distribution to use, disposal. And this system wasn't very good. It had lots of limits. So our planet was running out of resources to make the products, and it was running out of space to put the garbage. So, yeah, that was, and this is our city's product life cycle. It's the same thing, but disposal and extraction are very small, and we use reducing, reusing, recycling, and rotting to make it less linear. We you can see the arrows going from front to back. in the cycle.
So what do you do to reduce the amount of waste your citizens produce?
The first step is to reduce the amount of waste in the products. We do this by limiting the amount of packaging products have. Because in 2016, 14% of all the waste that the average American produced was packaging, and half of that packaging isn't needed, and the other half could be made recyclable and reusable.
How do your citizens reuse the stuff they buy?
Well, in our city we make reusing very easy. We have businesses that buy and sell used products. We also hire artists to reuse reused objects and turn them into works of art or sculptures. They decorate them, and we have them all around our parks.
You mentioned recycling. How do you do that?
Recycling is one of the biggest ways to reduce waste because it cuts down extraction and disposal and keeps the products going in distribution and use, and keeps the circle.
What do you do with your food waste?
Well, we have large-scale vermicomposting.
Wait, did you say vermicomposting includes vermin?
Well, no, vermicomposting is composting, but we use worms to help decompose the trash. So vermicomposting is better than normal composting because it's less labor intensive. The soil is more nutrient rich, and it can be done indoors and outdoors.
Why do you have a landfill? I thought the cities of the future wouldn't have landfills.
Well, we do reuse, reduce, recycle, and rot as much as possible, but even then, there's some leftover trash that we have to throw away. And so that goes into our methane gas capture landfill, and that captures methane from the landfill and makes it into energy that powers our city.
This sounds like an amazing city. It has lots of great features and sounds like a safe and peaceful place to live. And I love the feature about the soccer field. I can't wait to move in. As you can see, the green is the hobbit holes and low density right here. And then blue is commercial or city buildings. And mixed use is the two different colors. Residential is pink and industrial is yellow.
And here are two final colors.
This is our symphony hall. This is our art museum. This is our police/fire station. This is our grade school. Back here is trash art. This is our reuse store. This is our vermicomposting. This is our vertical farming. This is our recycling plant, and this is our methane gas collect.
Any questions?
Bert?
I just have a comment, really. I saw you guys 2 weeks ago. You didn't have any of this at that time, did you? Did you just put all this together in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah.
That was a lot of work. Yeah, that's incredible. Great to see. I also love that in the waste stream you addressed even the problem items. You realized we can't quite get to dealing with everything, and I like that you were able to address that and even then turn that into a positive with the methane capture. So this is great to see. Well done.
Any other questions?
Tom?
I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about, maybe each of you tell us just a little bit about how you came up with some of your ideas and some of your where you went for research on some of the ideas.
We had a lot of guest speakers come in and talk to both of our groups, and one of the ideas they gave us was different colors for different parts of the cities. So like the industrial is yellow and the pink is residential. And we also got the idea of having underground houses, because that makes more houses can be closer together and you could still have a yard on top of your house.
And also, our school provided laptops when we had Future City after school, so that was very useful.
Yeah, we did lots of research at home and at school. Yeah, guest speakers helped a lot.
And we when we were building our model, we always researched if there's something we didn't know, we researched it more.
And so we tried to reuse, reduce, recycle, and rot as much as we could, but the only way you could get your city to be completely non-garbage is if we got rid of every single kind of plastic, and we all went completely vegetarian. Because vermicomposting won't have meat in it, because if you have meat in it, it will kill the worms and it will stink really, really bad.
Should we switch?
Just was noticing a little bit, are those on the tops of the pink buildings, it looks like you have green roofs, is that right? Yeah,
We
that's
have
a nice,
gardens on top of every roof,
right.
except
And
for the industrial.
Yeah, I was curious because I know when you were saying about your energy sources that you didn't mention solar, was it that you were sort of trading off between having
Yeah.
solar panels and green
Our
roofs?
buses run on algae and solar power. And in our backdrop, we have a lake, and that's where we get our algae from.
And our nuclear, we use a lake to cool our nuclear power plant,
Right.
So it's a passive cool reactor.
but we didn't bring our backdrop.
Was it easy or hard to decide about the nuclear? Because I'm sure you probably read about some of the controversy about it.
It was, but it provides a lot of power. And
Yeah, and it's a good way to
and
get
the
rid of
nucle-
the extra garbage.
And there's a lot of stuff that that went wrong in Japan. So I mean, yeah, I feel like we could, and this is the future, so we can make it safer, and it's a lot of stuff.
And more efficient.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really, I like that a lot. I was thinking too, with the underground housing, you probably get better energy efficiency too, right?
Yeah, in
Yeah,
the
that's
winter,
one-
it keeps it warmer and cooler in the summer.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we chose them.
Well, very well done. Is there any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Just one more
Yep.
question, if you don't mind. I'm just curious, you were covering a lot of different topics in the discussions that you had. I'm just wondering, what did you think ended up being the biggest challenge as far as creating your sustainable city?
Well, Future City's theme is
Waste not, want not.
yeah. So having a very
So that was most of our research, looking at how we could get rid of garbage and how we could reuse, reduce, and recycle and rot
Yeah.
in different ways.
And we found out that we can't get down to 0% trash. We can get down to a very, very, very small amount, but
The average person in America today produces 4.3 pounds of garbage per day. In our city, our citizens only produce 1.3 pounds.
and that's before most of so that's
Any other questions or comments?
Just a lot of good work that you did there, and it really, turned out very well. And thanks for bringing it to us. Okay.
No, they both were working. We're just trying to get them both to work at the same time. And no. Well, you might want to put it backwards. In case. Yeah, one another.
So, hi, we're Future City Team Korberg, and we have 3 presenters, but we have 5 team members. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Azure.
I'm Bronwyn.
I'm Caroline.
I'm Theo.
I'm Sage.
And Bronwyn, Theo, and I are going to be the ones presenting. Okay. Hey there, I heard you're looking for a city to live in.
Yeah, I've lived in a lot of cities, but all of them were boring, unhealthy, and unsafe. I especially noticed that all of them have horrible waste management systems. It disgusts me.
So, is waste management important to you?
Yes.
Then I think we know the city for you, Korberg.
Korberg?
Yes, Korberg. They have no waste whatsoever.
What? They must have waste.
In a sense, Korberg has waste, but they don't think of it as waste. To the Korbergians, waste is a resource. Their most important resource, in fact.
Unlike most cities, Korberg's consumer economy is a circle, not a line. Their waste feeds right back into their production.
But trash is yucky. How can garbage become fresh new products?
I'll show you. Take a look at this model. Here is a building under construction. It's made of bricks, like many buildings in Korberg. Where do you think those bricks come from?
I don't know. Clay?
Yes, most bricks are made of clay, but there's an unlimited amount of clay in the world. In Korberg, bricks are made of waste.
Waste? I don't want to live in a house made of garbage.
Calm down. Coburg's buildings aren't just made of piles of trash.
Trash is brought by bicycle cart to this plant, where it is sanitized and super compacted using a process known as pulverization. It is then brought to building sites like this one or stores across the city.
What about food? Does Coburg have a lot of locally grown food?
Locally grown food? Coburg grows almost all of its food practically inside the city borders. In addition, most people grow some of their food on green roofs.
And Coburg even incorporates waste into its farming. Want to see how?
Yeah.
In Coburg, sewage is reincorporated into its food as fertilizer on Coburg's local farms, after being treated, of course.
Ew, wouldn't the food end up being kind of sewagey?
There are risks to sewage farming if it's not done properly. However, if the sewage is treated before being used for fertilizer and the food is washed after harvest, there should be no risk at all. Coburg's agricultural engineers have made sure that the food produced from this fertilizer is safe to eat.
Okay, that sounds alright. What about recycling and composting?
Composting is done within city blocks, while recycling is done citywide. After products have been recycled many times and lost their quality, they're pulverized.
That's cool, but all this talk about waste is a waste of time. What about making new products? They can't all be made out of waste, can they?
That's true. Wood and paper products are made from timber grown on timber islands like this one, as well as from recycled materials. Energy comes mostly from wind farms like this one, which Coburg's electrical engineers have designed.
The energy can be sold to other cities if there is a surplus. And the Coburg's water is desalinated from the Pacific Ocean. Purified, of course.
But what about plastic or metal or glass?
Metal and glass are sourced mainly the way they would be in a normal city.
Though we did try to import metal from mines in less environmentally sensitive areas.
Yes, but anyway, Coburg's materials engineers have introduced a remarkable innovation into making plastic, formerly a very harmful material to the environment.
After chickens raised humanely in Coburg are killed and eaten, their feathers are processed into plastics on normal plastic-making machinery.
The obvious advantage of these plastics is that they are biodegradable, but they're also much stronger than regular plastics.
And putting the feathers into plastics keeps them out of the jump after the chickens have been killed.
Chicken feathers are cool and all, but what about culture and community? I want to live in a city that's very livable.
Well, you've come to the right place. Coburg is designed around community. The city blocks are made up of an octagon of buildings, here, inside a square street grid. Here, each block acts like a mini community. This mini community congregates in the courtyards, here that are in the middle of each block.
What's with the octagon of buildings on each block?
I'm glad to see you're paying attention. The octagons draw people into the courtyards, instead of having buildings isolated in the corners of blocks. And then the triangles left over, like here, that can be used for flowers and trees that brighten up the street corners.
The entire city of 50,000 people congregates around 50,000 Plaza, which means 50,000 in French and German, where there's a market 4 days a week. And this is a tree line separating Coburg's residential commercial blocks over here from Coburg's industry and farms over here.
What's that?
It's a boardwalk, a place where the whole community can congregate.
What about cultural attractions like churches and theaters?
Coburg is a very diverse city with many religions and religious establishments. For example, this is a church and here is a mosque.
Coburg also has many theaters, galleries, and museums. In addition, there are often performances on 50,000 Plaza on non-market days.
Coburg sounds pretty good, but I feel like I'm forgetting something. I know. What do people in Coburg use for transportation?
I'm glad you asked. Transportation is another one of Coburg's great innovations. Personal cars are banned and bicycles dominate the streets. But for people unable to get very far by biking or walking, or for anyone who needs to get somewhere fast, Coburg presents the Plan Along the Way bus.
Instead of having a pre-planned route, Coburg's buses plan their routes as they go, based on information given to them by people using the city app on their phones.
Cool. Oh my gosh. I forgot. Where is Coburg?
Coburg is located on the Pacific Ocean in Washington State. There are many beautiful mountains and plentiful nature to enjoy right outside the city.
In addition, the climate of the Pacific Northwest is pleasant, and the sea provides bountiful fish to eat and sell. This is the fishing boat coming into the harbor.
This is great. I'm packing up and moving to Coburg right this instant.
Do you have any questions?
I'm interested to learn more about pulverization, and I also want to hear a couple of ideas on some critical challenges in closing the waste loop.
Okay. I can do pulverization. Sure. So here we talk about our pulverization process, and it says here that we pulverize new materials into buildings at our pulverization factory. And that reflects our circular waste management system, because if we have waste, then we can go back again and make it a new product, which takes it back to the beginning of the cycle. So here we have a picture of some rubble, and it says parts from parts from old buildings or other materials are taken in a bike cart to our pulverization factory. So once the buildings fall down, if something breaks, but if there is something that maybe has been recycled too many times, it will be taken by a bicycle cart, which is shown here, to our pulverization factory, where it will be unloaded and loaded onto the conveyor belt, and it will be crushed and ground and all the sorts of things like that. And then once it becomes a brick, after that process, it will be taken back out to building sites such as this one and built into a new building. Now, this building is a new hospital because this building, our old hospital, had some problems with the elevator, and they want to get a new hospital for that.
And some of the challenges with closing the waste loop, like you said, one of the things is plastic is sort of hard to recycle sometimes, and it's sort of a bad material, it stays around for a really long time after you've thrown it away. But yeah, we were sort of researching at one of our meetings one day, and Azure came across that actually there already has been invented that you can make plastic out of chicken feathers, and as we said, it's strong and biodegradable, and so we use that in our city.
And it keeps the feathers out of the dump.
Yeah.
Which are
Great. Are there other questions or comments? And actually, you already answered my question, which was whether the chicken feather plastics were a current technology, and it sounds like they are.
They're not a really well-known thing, though, I don't think.
No, they're not commonly used, but they are current.
That's really interesting. And I see you've also got green roofs on your.
Yes, most of our buildings have green
Yeah.
roofs. And
Is any of that part of the agricultural production, or is it more for other environmental benefits?
Well, some people do have little rooftop gardens. With the green roofs, they can make it into a vegetable garden kind of.
And another thing we have on top of our roofs, or for the pulverization factory, so the pulverization factory runs solely on solar panels, unless it is a cloudy day, and then it will take in energy from the wind farms, but it mainly runs on the solar panels on top of the building.
I just have, I guess, something for both groups. I think it's great, and I guess I hope you all keep, maintain your interest in these topics and in these ideas. And I guess I'd like to encourage you to keep thinking critically about how you test the validity of your ideas, and kind of questioning some of your assumptions and how you come up with those ideas, because that makes your ideas become better. And then maybe also be thinking about, how do we start implementing some of these ideas? How do we move closer to this vision from where we are right now? So, anyways, just a little encouragement on going forward from here. Anyways, thanks. I really appreciate that.
thank you.
Bart?
Hi, sure. Sorry, just one question before you take off. First of all, the enthusiasm of the group is awesome. I really feel like, in some ways, moving right now. It sounds great. And question-wise, if I'm not mistaken, feasibility's a component in the scoring for Future City, right? Is there something that you rejected based on it not being feasible?
No. Well, kind of. At first, we were thinking sort of octagon roads for a very brief time, and then we were like, no, that's not reasonable at all. That would be too many turns with the help of Mr. Tess. And we just kind of threw that plan out in the garbage right instantly after 5 minutes.
So, on the model we did, but if the city were to exist, I don't think that would be as big of a problem. But we had limited sizes for buildings. So I think on the model,
Yes. So we only really created buildings that fit the materials that we had. And we took things like objects that we already had and made buildings out of those instead of trying to imagine a building and trying to find materials for it, because that would take a long time.
And it would be, and now we can recycle materials that we already have. Too.
All right, are there other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you very much. This is really impressive stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing the groups to come and present to you. We appreciate you giving them practice for their Chicago competition.
There we go.
And good luck in
with that.
Chicago this weekend, right?
We don't really have a place we can put this out there. These other two, so it's just until we leave, yeah.
So the teams will be competing all day in Chicago. There are multiple phases to the competition, multiple iterations, and lots of awards to be had, and it's a lot of fun.
All right, let's move to the monthly staff report.
So some updates on the climate action plan. One of our goals was to evaluate the feasibility of retrofitting some additional streetlights as LED. We identified one potential project as a partnership opportunity with the campus with the University of Illinois, and we've done some initial feasibility on that and shared some of that information with facilities and services, and we're going to talk with them a little bit further about what might be possible there. But there's some possibilities and particular lighting needs on a stretch of road that the city owns but goes through campus. Additionally, we've marked one of our sections on our renewable energy goal as in progress. We've talked about the Solar Urbana-Champaign program before, but just hadn't marked it as in progress on our tracking. We are now officially participating in the mayor's the Compact of Mayors, which is an agreement of mayors across the country to work towards reducing their greenhouse gases coming from their cities. This is a project sponsored by ICLEI, which we are a member of. The Compact of Mayors is similar to a pledge that and process that Urbana undertook several years ago, which was called the 5 milestones to a climate action plan, and then the 5 milestones to sustainability. And we followed that process. This is similar. It is more in depth, and you can see the different steps that are involved in the compact. First is just registering your commitment to join. Second, take an inventory of your greenhouse gases, something we've already done. One of the things that's more specific in the compact is how that inventory is conducted and how it's reported. So there's now a national and in fact international reporting platform. It's a voluntary reporting platform that the Compact of Mayors is leveraging and which we are already reporting on actually. Next is create reduction targets and establish a system of measurement. Also things we've done Next is establish an action plan. So also things we've done. A lot of this sounds familiar, but as I mentioned in the report, some of the activities that we've undertaken already may not be in the format that the compact is asking for, may not be to the extent that the compact is asking for, may not follow the same process or procedures that they're asking for. So there may be some steps that we have to go through again to be compliant. It's a multi-year process. If you're interested, there's a lot of documents on their website that get into the details of how they want you to plan, implement, and report. But I think it's a real positive step. There's a lot of cities across the country getting involved that haven't been getting involved before in greenhouse gas reduction.
Just briefly, should we anticipate either revising the climate action plan or potentially having a sort of version 2.5 or?
I'm still evaluating that. As much as possible, I'd like to take the work we've already done and the process we're already following and report it as part of the compact. Where additional steps are necessary, we may do a sub-plan or another version. We'll see. I've got a 2016 SAC schedule in the staff report. Generally, we present this in December. I think we canceled our December meeting or moved to the bicycle master plan meeting instead. And generally, the SAC makes a motion to accept that as the official schedule for the year. A regular schedule of meetings posted is required by Open Meetings Act, I believe. So most of these are, of course, on the first Tuesday of the month. Some of them are not, making accommodations for other events in the city calendar. So if the committee wants to make a motion to accept these dates or maybe discuss any changes that need to be made.
Yeah, just to call your attention to the year is 2015 in the list. Other than that, it looks good.
And actually, we have a separate agenda item, it looks like, under new business for
Okay.
the schedule, so maybe we can make a motion at that point.
Sure. On the Sustainable Water Management Plan, we had an item to evaluate the feasibility of an ordinance that would require any new landscape irrigation system to be equipped with either a rain sensor or a soil moisture sensor. In doing some research on the state plumbing code, it appears that that's already in the code, and so the city enforces the state plumbing code, and so that would be a matter of course. In speaking with our code officials, we haven't had a permitted new irrigation system in a while, so they haven't had opportunity to review this particular piece of the state code. But it's there, so I've marked that as complete at this time, and we'll evaluate it again when we have some new permit applications.
Scott, could you tell us what is the threshold for a permittable irrigation system? What would that be?
Just reading the quote here, it says all automatically operated lawn sprinkler systems. Okay. So certainly you with a hose in your backyard is not automatic. Right. Probably anything that kicks on with a timer qualifies.
Pipes in the ground, probably.
Yeah, pipes in the ground might be a giveaway.
Yep.
Yeah. Good question, though. We had a goal in our water plan and some related goals in the mayor and council goals that they pass every 4 years. I had a goal to establish a policy for city procurement whereby the city would choose WaterSense labeled products whenever we're buying qualifiable products. And I've marked that as complete. The mayor has signed a green procurement policy that will implement this January and start doing education with staff. The policy applies to purchases that the city makes for itself. And there's a copy of it, of the signed version in your packet, and it covers essentially a lot of third-party environmental certifications for different types of products that the city may buy. We've talked several times about the city's activities, legal activities to protect the Mahomet Aquifer, and so I've marked that action as complete. That doesn't mean we're not doing anything on that front anymore. Simply that the specific language has been completed. The members of the Mahomet Aquifer Coalition have expressed an interest in continuing some sort of relationship or workload towards further protections of the aquifer. We also had a goal to evaluate best practices and design a inspection program for public and private stormwater treatment facilities, retention ponds. And the Public Works Engineering Division now has staff assigned to that program, and they've created a 5-year inspection cycle for all of the retention ponds that are in the city, which is a fairly assertive inspection regime. I think that's going to ensure that those retention ponds are always working at top level. They've also got a database so that they can track that, of course, and log their inspections. And so that item has been marked as complete. U-Cycle recently participated in a countywide electronics recycling. It was several months ago, but we haven't had the reports from the vendor until recently. And so those reports are in the packet. One of them was the report provided to us by the county, and over the course of years that we've been conducting these electronics recycling, based on the vendor and based on the market, how certain products are reported in the collections report has fluctuated. So the same categories and terms aren't always used. So what I did was essentially did my best to fold in the differing terms used into a smaller number of categories so that we could compare year to year on a chart and kind of see if there's any trends. And if you look at that in your packet, it's a little erratic, but it does appear that the number of televisions we're collecting has gone up since in the last 5 years that we've been conducting these. The other items are kind of up and down, so not a real clear trend, but still useful to see. The state of Illinois has recently conducted a waste characterization. They do this, I don't know if it's on a regular schedule, but they've certainly done it before. And the report that they issue is attached. I included that. It's interesting just to see what generally what our full waste profile probably looks like. Some of the things that are that are large, loom large in that report include construction and demolition recycling or construction and demolition materials. We've currently permitted and a facility is in construction right now in Urbana that would recycle construction and demolition materials. So we're hoping that that's going to take a large chunk of our waste stream out of the waste and into the recycle stream. And we are the city has ordinances that require some reporting from licensed waste haulers. So we're amending how those what's in those reports so that we can also capture construction and demolition materials that are hauled. So we're hoping to see an increase there. The other thing that's that's in there that we don't in the report that we don't currently address is food scrap. We do, of course, collect some organics in terms of landscape trimmings with the Landscape Recycling Center, but we don't have food scrap collection, so that's another significant piece in the state's waste profile.
it's just a, question on reading the tables. There's a few of them they'll have like a waste composition percentage and then another column that says cumulative percentage. And I'm not sure how to read that. I don't know.
Which document? are you referring to?
It's in the waste characterization report. I noticed it. If
What
you go
page?
Go to page 6 is one example of it. It's paper page 6 on the PDF. It's page 16. It says table 2, top 10 individual material categories. And I noticed it there, and then there was at least one other table that's like that, and I'm not sure what's being accumulated and why would those percentages be bigger than or different from the waste composition percentages. If anybody else knows how to interpret that.
There's a description of the table
Yeah.
above, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
that's clarifying.
Yeah.
It says these 10 categories
So
account
then
for
there's-
50% of landfilled solid waste.
Oh, isn't it just a running added total?
Ah, yes, it is. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, the 50%, sure. Last item, our next meeting would be February 2nd, 7 p.m. in council chambers. Any questions on any of the other items? There is a document that describes some additional details on the Compact of Mayors compliance in packet, the waste characterization study, the green procurement policy.
I had a small question. Well, first of all, we had a lot of rain last week and a lot of flooding. Any news from the field on how the city weathered that and performance generally of our stormwater?
It was
routing?
sunny in Florida.
Was it? You weren't here for that? How was your basement when you got back?
It was dry by the time I got back.
Okay. No Amazon boxes on the floor?
No.
Um,
Okay, do you have a response to that?
we spoke on the phone.
We did speak on the phone. Probably had about 30 different calls with backups, whether lower level or basement. Our crews, the lines were surcharged all over the city, so we just dealt with it as soon as the precipitation stopped and gave it some time, and some of the lines went down. But I think we had a couple of neighborhoods where it took a little longer than normal. But I know that our engineering division is working with a few homeowners to reassess what they can do to try and. There's only so much you can do when you have that volume of rainfall in that period of time. But we were busy.
Yeah.
We were busy.
So, Scott, I was on more of a comment on the item here about inspection, maintenance, and regulation of stormwater storage. I was curious if you basically said that it was equivalent to mostly the ponds, and I was curious about, I'm guessing, structures like permeable pavement, bioswales, rain gardens have on a different maintenance schedule.
I think they're in the very same database.
Okay, but they would take more than a once every 5 year, I would think, just based on vegetation and, do permeable structures silt up and stop working? And
You'll find a lot of variability.
Yeah.
You'll find a lot of variability on how fast those features fill in, so to speak, with accumulated sediments or overgrown due to lack of maintenance. You can have a swale that looks exactly as you put it in 20 years later, and the next block over you can have one that's silted in 2 years. I don't know that the type of feature having inspected thousands of these, I don't know that the type of feature makes a difference in the inspection schedule.
I was curious about that. Just anecdotally, I heard, and it's not the same as a functional inspection, but like vegetation management in rain gardens and stuff, I've heard was sort of a wild card, and people were trying to figure out. I was guessing it would take more active management, but maybe that's a whole different division, different ball of wax. So
I think one of the challenges for small features like rain gardens and swales is that, you know, the amount of storage capacity or infiltrative capacity that you're checking on per inspection can go down real low compared to a regional retention pond. And so you can end up spending a lot of time inspecting a lot of little facilities. Now they must add up to something altogether, right? But you know, for those, you know, the marginal value is really challenging.
yeah, I guess that's partly why I'm asking about it. Is the boneyard itself considered a stormwater management facility? The improvements in the boneyard, is that it doesn't necessarily store?
No, that wasn't really designed with a lot of storage or infiltration in mind. Certainly, you know, I think a lot of that area, landscaped area, was a parking lot before, right?
Some of it.
So in that sense, it certainly did increase the infiltrative capacity, but there's not really a lot of storage that was designed in there. It was primarily designed as park, open space, public space, economic redevelopment.
That's all I had.
Other questions or comments on the staff report?
I've got one, I guess. Scott, would you mind just following up on the construction, demolition, recycling facility and what that looks like going forward? What materials, timeline-wise, will they take and how soon? And are there plans to expand that into other materials in the future or not really?
Off the top of my head, my recollection is that it was a very expansive list of construction and demolition materials. Asphalt shingles, concrete, wood, metal, drywall. My recollection is hearing the list and not thinking of any materials that weren't included. I'm sure there are, but it's kind of everything. I don't know what the time frame is. I mean, I visited the site once, and they were actively doing construction. One of the pieces of the construction is a large building where they'll have a tipping floor.
All right. Anything else on the staff report? Then let's move on to continuing business and the Grow Solar programming updates.
So the Grow Solar technical assistance, first project I want to touch on is the Solar Urbana-Champaign bulk solar purchasing program. We had really great success in drawing folks to our solar power hours. Folks that are working with us from other cities that have worked on these projects before. We're very pleased. We got our first contract signed about the time of the second solar power hour, I think. And I think that was one of the fastest uptakes of the first contract signed that our technical assistance partners have seen. So that's all very, very good news. I've pulled up an updated poster that has, I'm going to have to zoom in and just show you part of it so you can actually read it, but shows the solar power hour dates and locations that are coming up. So we have Champaign-Urbana and Tolono. Reminder, we chose all of Champaign County as our market area. We're also working to create to find a venue and create an audience for rural businesses and farms. There is an extremely good opportunity for businesses that are located in a USDA rural zone, which is more or less everything outside of Champaign-Urbana. They can take advantage of all the benefits that we're already talking about, that we've already set up with Solar Urbana-Champaign. But in addition, there's also some incentives from the USDA. So it's a really good opportunity for businesses and also homeowners too. But there's particular benefits for businesses in USDA rural zone. So we're working on a specific audience with the Farm Bureau and see if we can set that up and share this information with them. An update on the numbers for Solar Urbana-Champaign. We have 137 signups. So a sign-up is someone submits name, address, phone number, email. They get put on an email list so that they're updated with the goings-on with the program, and they're invited to all the power hours, and they'll get a follow-up phone call from our vendor where, if they're interested, they can share details of what their interest is in solar and have a kind of an over-the-phone very preliminary feasibility assessment. So they'll ask you things like, do you have a south-facing roof? Is your entire south-facing roof open to the sun or covered by a tree? These types of things. And if that initial feasibility is positive, and if the sign-up person is interested, that can be followed up with a site assessment. The next step is the site assessment. As I mentioned, our program's conducted 11 site assessments, and then they provide a proposal follow afterwards. And the numbers our vendor has given me is 11 site assessments and 12 proposals. So I'm not sure who had a proposal without having a site assessment, but maybe it was someone who knew all their site details already, or had a site assessment a few years ago and just needed an updated dollars and cents proposal. So that's proceeding well. We've set a May deadline to close all of the contracts for the program. The May deadline is really just to ensure that the vendor has enough time to get all the systems that are contracted installed by the end of the year. That's important for tax benefits and for SREC sales. We also have some progress made on another piece of the actually, maybe I can pull it up, of the Grow Solar Technical Assistance. One of the pieces we undertook was an evaluation of, I can't speak and type websites at the same time, hold on. Evaluation of our planning, zoning, and permitting. And we used the solar roadmap process to kind of guide how we would evaluate our planning, zoning, permitting, and potentially make improvements. That's completed, and we should have a profile that is unlocked and open to the public, if I can navigate to it. Here we go. So based on all of the variables that Solar Roadmap, which is a DOE-funded project, based on all of the different aspects that they want cities to consider, we have completed 52% of those. And you can see a little bit of a breakdown here. The planning zoning piece, we're at 83%. Permitting 57%. Financing, open that up for you. There's a drop down. There's two items. Encourage local financial stakeholders to establish new solar loan programs. well, actually, we have encouraged them, but there hasn't been uptake, so I don't know if we can mark that one off as complete or not. The second one there is promote availability of existing solar finance options and evaluation tools. So we haven't marked either of those as complete. Solar market development, let's check that. Support aggregate procurement program for residential sector. I think maybe that one has a sun next to it, so that probably means we've marked that as complete. Explore implementation of collaborative procurement programs for municipal facilities and schools. That's probably underway, and that'll be the next piece that I'll talk about. I think what we're working on would fall into that category. Explore installing solar at municipal facilities. That's actually also what we're evaluating. And provide solar educational resources to constituents. So, this says the city website. I guess we could put something on the city website. All that to say, the big piece in my mind in terms of removing barriers is in the planning, zoning, and permitting these first two phases. And the city has done a lot of that in the past, and so we're pretty well positioned. And some of those items, the community development department now has in front of them, and they can evaluate if they make sense for them.
So is our, and I'm forgetting the name of it, our Buy Solar initiative, is that check boxes in the financing options category or not?
That one is under solar market development.
Okay.
This first one here, you can see it says 1 of 5 goals achieved, and then there's a sunshine next to that one, but none of the others. Well, there's a sunshine next to that one. Anyway, we've got one marked is achieved. This is updatable. The process, as I understand it, is I email somebody and tell them that we've completed this one and tell them how.
Scott, what were the, with the financing options, what were some of the activities? I think you mentioned, we've encouraged people or, loan companies to do something, but they haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that process or, what was done or,
Probably process is too much. We've talked to folks that we know at local financial institutions and just talk to them about what about their business and what the feasibility is of having a special solar loan product. Had those conversations again when we started the Solar Urbana-Champaign program,
mm-hmm.
and I think that they view it as they have all kinds of loan products already, and things like home loans would certainly be applicable to home upgrade like solar panels.
I wonder if a way of achieving the goal is, I mean, this is something that's interesting to me, but I wonder if it's about, I don't know whether it's education materials or some kind of, bringing together what are the existing loan options right now. Not some specialized loan thing, but how can you do solar right now with existing loan options? I mean, there's home equity loans. I'm sure, people could do that. That's something that I'm going to be looking at, when our quote comes in. But anyway, that's something that I think, maybe we could do as a group if that's a thing that's interesting to people, instead of creating new loan products.
Yeah.
And maybe getting all the when everybody goes out to get their financing, maybe that'll become a big opportunity for the financiers.
Yeah, certainly.
So along these lines, I wonder, I know, so this is a private business that is operating the project. We have MIA, the not-for-profit, which is answerable to the U.S. Department of Energy, but then we have a private company that is handling the transactions with the individual homeowners. But for financing, the information about the values of the transactions and the performance of those transactions, both in terms of energy and say, cash flows before and after could be really valuable. Say, this program is going to end, and it'd be nice to have something like that continue. And so, MIA is not going to have extended funding, or at least they don't have a guarantee of that right now. But I wonder if we have access to any kind of information, or if there's any way that we can bring together some data to look at, how do we extend this kind of thing without having to, is this something that we can support without providing more grant funds to make it go?
Yeah, it's a good question. As you mentioned, loans like a home equity, a line of credit, home loan are around all the time and could be used for that. The specific solar loan vendor that our vendor partnered with, our solar installer partnered with, is a national solar loan company. That's the only thing they do. And I suppose they probably work in other cities that don't have a group purchase program too. So that's a piece of information we could share as well. And maybe there's a need for a space on our website to kind of aggregate that information beyond just this program. Is that kind of the direction you're thinking?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's, I guess, what are some options that are out there right now that people can tap into, and just make it easier to do.
Yeah, part of the DOE is all about developing the solar market in particular cities, and reducing barriers to uptake of solar, and I think just having this purchase opportunity that can get a lot of attention. It does two things. It draws people's attention to these loan options and installer options, but also draws those financiers and installers, draws their attention to our city as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that hopefully we're making both of them come closer to each other and connect.
Yeah, and so this is just thinking out loud here, but this experience, so other communities are doing this as well. But I wonder if there's things that we can learn from this process, maybe go for other kinds of funding opportunities, in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. The DOE grants are something we want to keep on our radar. The technical assistance can be valuable.
Thanks.
The last piece in our Growth Solar Technical Assistance is evaluating city facilities for rooftop solar. And we got some information just recently from our technical assistance providers. It's basically a preliminary evaluation, and it looks like city facilities, there's some challenges. First challenge is almost all of our rooftops need to be repaired or replaced on a timeline far shorter than the lifespan of solar panels. And so it's generally considered not viable to put solar panels on a roof only to take them off and put them back on again 5 years later, because you're essentially paying the install cost twice within the lifetime of the equipment. So that kind of cuts down the number of facilities or number of rooftops that we could install solar. Given that, though, what we're being shown is an expected competitive price of 7 to 8 cents per kilowatt, compared to more like 6 for grid electricity. So what that means is, if we were to go out to bid for rooftop solar on city facilities, we'd probably need to be prepared to pay a little bit more for the electricity generated by the solar. And what that means, of course, is we need to look at our budget and see if we've got room to, in our utilities line items, to invest a little more in renewable electricity on our own rooftops. That may be, depending on what your expectations are, that may just be a good long-term investment. While year one, we may be paying, 8 cents instead of 6. By year 10, the market is probably, grid prices have probably escalated up to 8%. The utility company is, I think, legally authorized to raise fees and transmission fees and the such as much as 3% a year. That doesn't take into account cost increases in the supply price of electricity. So I don't, it's a difficult decision that we're going to have to evaluate. We've also looked at the feasibility of ground-mounted solar at our closed landfill. A lot of that space is used up by other uses, which is great. The landscape recycling center, a firing range. But there's still a lot of space out there. A lot of it is not flat, so it's less than ideal in some ways. One of the things we're looking into is it appears that the state's net metering law for commercial is basically the same as the net metering law for residential, which means if you produce more than you use over a 12-month period, you don't get paid for that. You just lose it. It's free kilowatts to Ameren. And since our consumption at the landfill is, just the reception shack, the cashier shack at the landscape recycling center, putting a megawatt of solar out there would just be giving a lot of free kilowatts away on our dime. So we're trying to investigate if there is another financial model whereby we can actually make that project viable. So if anyone has insight on that, be happy to talk to you about it. Any questions on gross solar?
No, actually, I was just going to make one brief comment about, because you're saying about how the cycle for repairing or replacing the roofs is shorter than the lifespan of the solar panels. I imagine that's probably true for a lot of residential properties that are having this done. But I wonder, is there a way to just kind of like factor that into the cost that, when it would come time to repair the roof, you would simply have to, just like any other piece of equipment on that roof, remove it and reinstall it.
It's not that the cycle is shorter. It's that all of our roofs are in a state of repair, a state of need.
Oh, okay. So they're just not ready to go yet.
We can. So when we install a new roof or repair or replace a roof, it'll be rated for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, which is great. The challenge is that most of our roofs are at the end of that 20, 30, 40, 50 year cycle, and they don't have all that time left. But to your point, you can do exactly what you said. You can just factor in your own calculations some additional thousands of dollars that are going to be needed. Basically, you add operations and maintenance costs, a big lump sum expenditure 5 years down the road or something like that. And if it still works out for you financially, then you can go ahead and do that. Being that it already looks like we'd be spending more on the kilowatts for 5, 10, 15 years, it's challenging. Other questions on gross solar? Okay, next is the annual report. Yes? Okay.
Can I go back for just 1 second?
Sure.
I was just kind of searching around for solar loans, and there's a whole industry of solar loan companies with a long list of lenders nationally. and actually cities that have done this. But the most likely candidates are usually cities or credit unions. I don't see any on the list right here, but there's lots of examples out there around the country that solar loans exist and at interest rates, they're saying, lower than home equity loans. So it's possible. I could actually make a phone call or two and see if a credit union in the area might be interested in duplicating what's being done elsewhere.
Sure. So switching over to annual report template. A lot of the content is the same as we looked at in our previous meeting. I think there's some formatting changes here in showing the two big pieces of the environmental budget, and I put in, with Bart's suggestion, put in a little description of what those two pieces fund, so that there's a little more clarity there. There's not an easy way or a clear way to break that budget down into more specifics, but at least folks get a sense of, what recycling costs and what all of our other programming costs. Some of this content is just needs another quarter or another month to actually finish out for the year. So some of it is real data, so to speak. A lot of the additional information and featured projects are true to what'll actually appear, and then hopefully this template will be useful to reuse over and over.
Yeah, I was wondering on that the table at the bottom with the city facilities, and I don't know if you've got, well, I suppose you do have at least some of this data, but I wonder if it'd be possible to graph that out so you could see kind of year by year
yes.
what changes
so
take place.
that would be a chart that in the future that will look like the top chart on that page. We only have 1 year of data in our greenhouse gas modeling tool for city facilities. So we did, when we got the new tool, we benchmarked 2013 for the whole community, and we already had 2007. Well, actually, what we did was we got the new tool, and we re-benchmarked 2007 in the new tool, and then also benchmarked 2013. And then the following year, we switched gears and benchmarked 2014 for city facilities. And so the pattern that we're working is every other year we'll do community or city facilities. So next year you'll have a trend line that'll be 2 years. Water, we're waiting. It looks like there's some formatting issue on the title in that middle chart. Water, we're waiting on some. We'll be getting the 2015 data in there. You'll see in city facilities there's 2015 data, but that's not the whole year. That's sort of up to September or something like that. So there will be a little more data going in there. Waste and recycling. We've got a chart in the middle that just doesn't have data added in it yet. That chart we had looked at before, and it was kind of skewed because we had included all the construction, demolition, recycling, and recycled content purchasing that's done for city road work. And that was, because it's concrete, there's so much, weight that it just sort of obliterated our, dumpster recycling and garbage, so to speak. And so we had discussed in our previous meeting to just remove the C&D from roadwork projects so that we can actually see a chart similar to the above one for the community waste and recycling.
So it might be good to have both items of information available, simply because I understand what you're saying, and I think it's probably good to track to track both.
Yeah, potentially. That's a possibility. Yeah. Nuisance, just waiting to finish up all the data entry from 2015. And this page, I don't think has changed. I think Todd, maybe you had mentioned some particular award or grant that we had received wasn't included here, and I was going to add it back in, and then I realized it was actually from from the previous calendar year, so I did not, in fact, add it back in. But any recommendations, comments, or questions? It is my hope to get a third chart on the waste and recycling. We're looking at how to calculate percent uptake of recycling. There's a lot of assumptions that be built into that. One assumption is multifamily recycling is required at all buildings, so 100% of buildings have recycling cans. That doesn't really mean that everyone in the building recycles, and there's not really any way to judge that. So we'd probably just call that 100%, however many, whatever the population is that lives in multifamily. For a single family, we're calling participation, we're making participation mean that someone has requested a recycling cart and we have delivered it. Now, if they put it in the garage, never use it, we'll never know. It's a false positive. If they move away and take it with them to another town and the new resident never requests a recycling cart, we'll never know, and it's also a false positive. But that's kind of the best we can do. We do have some growth to be made in the number of single-family residences that have had a recycling cart delivered. So I think it's still a useful metric, even though there's some fuzziness in the data.
I guess one thing I wonder is whether, and I don't know to what extent there is population data about like how much turnover there is in the community, because maybe something could be kind of extrapolated from that as an offset to get a closer number. Completely different topic. As I was going through this, I was looking at kind of the featured projects and some of the additional information, and I saw that I think maybe in one or two cases where it's kind of noted what the what the most powerful strategy was to achieve a certain outcome. I'm just wondering if that could be, some of that information could be more like wherever that's available, incorporated into the report, just because I think it'd be good for us to be able to see like what are the most effective strategies among the different things that we have in the climate action. And like I say, I think you certainly did that with regard to the RECs for the municipal aggregation program. And then I was just, to be honest, I didn't read every single, all of the boxes, but it made me think, that would be really good to have, kind of as consistently as possible for us to be able to identify what's having the most impacts.
We certainly don't have that analysis right now.
Okay.
Of all the activities.
Right.
Some of the activities in the Climate Action Plan are adaptation, so they're not mitigation, so that's kind of out. A lot of it would be very hard to judge. So, for instance, if one of the items in the solar roadmap is to put all of your permit applications fillable online or something like that. If we went and did that, that would be an activity. It has some impact, but there's not really any way to measure it. And a lot of our activities are like that. Now, what we invest in, let's say, staff time in all of the grow solar activities, and what we get installed in terms of solar panels, that's something we could do a cost benefit on.
I would just say where it's available.
Yeah.
Just to highlight that so that we kind of keep track of that. Great.
know, one thing that I wonder about, and maybe this isn't a thing for right now, but you know, just reading different trade magazines on recycling and waste, you know, by having the curbside and by allowing mixed, commingled, we've been able to increase the amount of materials that go into recycling and that get diverted from direct to landfill. But then there's a little bit of, I think there's a little bit of back and forth on the actual quality of the outcomes. You know, the actual useful economic recovery, and so I wonder, maybe just a germ of an idea for the future, if there's some way that we can start thinking about the, say, recycling effectiveness or something. So not just the amount that has gone into the bins, but you know, is there some way that we can start to wrap heads around what is actually becoming useful, you know, recycled post-consumer materials? Because a lot of, you know, I mean, of course, there are some materials that end up, they go into recycling and then they get landfilled just because of the nature of that collection system. So anyway, just a thought on that.
So our contract, our U-Cycle contract, states a goal for the vendors in terms of recovery, and it's recovery between what they pull from the can and put in their garbage trucks or put in their recycling trucks and bring back to the material recovery facility, and what portion of that gets bundled and sold off to a secondary market. And my recollection is the goal is 90%.
90%.
And we get reports on that, and I don't look at them every time they come in, but I think they're generally in the low 90s is the recovery rate. That does not say anything about what kind of material loss there is when the remanufacturing facilities unload a bundle and find that, you know, they paid for a whole bundle, but they can only actually use, you know, a 90% of that 90%. So there's probably another process where there's some culling of materials that get sorted into the landfill. There may be some, you know, in the trade magazines, there may be some industry standards that they work on. Figure that, you know, maybe 90% that reaches a recovery facility actually gets turned into a new aluminum can or whatever. But with our current contracts, there's certainly not a process for us to track that one step down the road.
But presumably, if they, you know, regardless of what they report, if they're doing a good job of separating, you know, if they're doing a bad job, they're not going to have customers in the secondary market in the future.
Yeah, I mean, every step of the way, there's an economic motivation to do pretty good recovery and get. I mean, the other thing to consider is, you know, we say, well, you know, something like 90% of what's collected actually gets sorted and bundled and sold off. Some of that is because what was collected wasn't actually recyclable. You know, people put things, non-recyclable things, in the recycling stream. So the fact that those did not get bundled and cause a problem farther down the recycling line is a good thing. Some of it is things that are recyclable, but maybe were broken and sort of fell through the cracks of the sorting process, and that's the piece you don't really want, right? You want to be able to capture that, and that would also be caught in our goals in our reporting.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. This is great. I like the outcome on that. Let's move to new business and the Sustainability Advisory Commission 2016 meeting schedule. We'll, I guess, refer to the schedule that is in this month's staff report, and then Bart already noted that we'll want to take those to be 2016 dates rather than 2015 dates. So with that, is somebody want to make a motion to approve the schedule? as described?
I will move that we adopt that schedule as listed.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that passes. And our next item of business is the bicycle master plan. And I know we, would have some opportunity to comment it if we'd want to. And Scott, I don't know if you have anything prepared, any prepared comments for us? Or?
No, only that it is your decision if you wish to make a comment and what kind of comment you want to make. You can issue support for all of the plan, parts of the plan. You can offer recommendations for any particular part of the plan. And I'm happy to put it on letterhead and send it to Gabe Lewis, would be the person to receive that at the Regional Planning Commission.
All right, does anybody want to formulate a motion for comments, or we could just start with a general discussion if that's preferable. But I don't know if anybody has specific comments in mind that they want to put forward.
I mean, I feel like putting together a comment of support, but to be honest, it's like a month and a half removed from the last time I looked at it. So
I should mention you all are also welcome, and or both, to make personal individual comments through the website. I had emailed all of you where to find documents and make personal comments if you choose as well. So if it's something you want to sit and look at the plan and type and look at the plan and type, you can do that as well.
Any other thoughts?
Scott, in your instructions to us, in your email to us prior to the meeting, did you indicate the timing is such that the commission could offer its comments at its next meeting, and they would still be timely?
I'd probably have to look at that email again.
I thought the deadline was February 1st for comments.
Yeah, I think in terms of our meeting schedule, it needed to happen this month. Yes. You can make, SAC can forward a comment after the public comment period is closed. It just may not get included in an official report or something like that.
can we put together a comment, just agree to send a comment that will be formulated and put together by us in the coming week? Can we state it that way, or?
I don't think you would be able to vote on it without having an official Open Meetings Act meeting.
I see, okay.
So the last sentence in your email, and I may be misreading it, but I read it to say, SAC may agree on comments to forward to Gabe Lewis at the January or is in italics, the February meeting. I just say that because I was hanging a lot on that sentence, hoping that we could take the month to research and write a nice letter.
Well, are folks willing to entertain the idea of just holding our February meeting a few days earlier, more towards the end of January, in order to be able to do that? Is that feasible? For instance, if we had our meeting on, like January 28th or something, and then just so we ended up with like 2 January meetings and not a true February meeting.
That's a lot of disruption to everyone's schedule.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's warranted.
If there's, it seems like there's, if there's some risk of the plan, not going forward, or if there's some, something seriously wrong, then, but otherwise, if people are generally supportive, I don't see any harm in in the commission not sending anything. Anyway, I don't feel any pressure that we need to reschedule a meeting so that we can send something as a group if we're not prepared to do that right now.
That sounds to me like the general consensus here is that the general consensus. So individually, if folks want to go on, just make their individual comments. All right. Okay. Well, I guess we can move to our next item, which is our announcements. Does anyone have announcements this evening? Doesn't sound like it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I can second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we're adjourned.